Welcome to High Point Market. Welcome to Universal Furniture. My name is Neil McKenzie, Senior Vice President of Marketing here at Universal. And if it's your first time here, welcome. There's a ton to see. If you'd like to explore the showroom after, please do so. Just check in at the front desk. Everything in the showroom is actually tagged, so you can grab a little scanner. You can scan everything that you love, so scan as much as you want, and you'll get an email with everything that you saw in the showroom. So it's a great way, rather than just taking pictures, you can get all the information. It'll have the pricing on there. It'll let you know if it's in stock, on sale, etc. Also, we have the Designers Lounge on floor 1. So we have a lot of fun activations happening in there this week. There's a fun swag bag from Rue Magazine, so be sure to check that out. And then, of course, our new introduction with Coastal Living Magazine is on floor 3 called Weekender. 80 different pieces in the collection, really a new finish tone for us. So be sure to go check that out. Wanted to welcome Tracy and Beth here today, kicking off things here in the Learning Center. We'll have 15 events here over 4 days. We do record them all, so if you did sign up for something and you missed anything, you will be able to get a recording. But they cover a number of different topics, and it's a great opportunity to come get some air conditioning, grab a cup of coffee, and catch up and learn. So wanted to welcome you guys here. Thank you for being here, and looking forward to your chat. And yeah, so thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So glad to be here, and thank you, Universal, for hosting these fantastic seminars, as we feel education in our field is utmost important. So it's funny. So I think we were talking about introducing each other, and we said, we'll just introduce ourselves. So it's a little easier that way. Yeah. So a little background. I'm Tracy Connell, and I have an interior design firm in Dallas, Texas. So I've been doing this for about 23 years, and mostly high-end residential. And a few years ago, I decided to follow my passion, because I feel like I've helped these clients for a long time, and my passion is teaching. So I took my transferable skills from when I was a teacher 20-something years ago into educating the interior design industry on the business strategies, the back ends, really of growing their firm, but really understanding their need for this next level that they all talk about, and I'll let Beth introduce themselves, but you'll see in your chairs, if you don't have a little note card, I'd love for you to see that. There's places to take notes, but I teach a free masterclass, and it starts May 1st, only an hour a day, 5 days. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but I want Beth to introduce herself, because she is a solution to a lot of my students' problems.
I am Beth Bender, and I am co-founder and principal of the Dove Agency. Little kind of background on my professional career. I had a design firm that I actually ran for about 20 years. My mom was an interior designer. My dad was a home builder. So I was born on a construction site. And for a while, I enjoyed design. I was passionate about design, but really where my real passion was around the business of design and how to run a firm. And so I started putting together some processes and really thinking about how do you scale a firm. And that really led me to see that I was not doing what I'm meant to do. And what I was meant to do is help put together a team that could actually help designers in a outsourced way run their businesses. So the Dove Agency was born, and we have a group of now 32 professionals that help designers run all kinds of areas of their back office. So that's a little bit about me.
And I think that we're going to talk a lot about that today, because there's more than just one approach in a design firm, right, to grow and scale your businesses. So what's really interesting, and this is a little backstory, I don't know if she knows this. So I have a fractional CFO they meet with every single month. And when they were just thinking about this endeavor, the Dove Agency, we were in one of our meetings, and she says, hey, I'm meeting with these two ladies, to talk about this endeavor that they're doing to help interior designers on the financial side, et cetera. And it was because she was going to actually join in and help you guys. And I know that you guys collaborate still some, but it was so interesting just to see that was probably 7 years ago to what they have evolved in. And it's truly amazing. So really, to kick this off, I asked Beth, because I have an answer and she has an answer. I said, what is one of the biggest questions or concerns that interior designers have when they call you for help?
Mhm.
Like, what do they say?
And the biggest thing that I get when somebody calls me is, I have my business, I love design, but I don't know where to go now. I do not know who to hire next. I don't know what part of my business that I should be outsourcing or should bring in-house, and I don't know how to get to the next level. And that getting to the next level is always that first question that I get. And that really goes across all areas of a back office, because, designers and owners of design firms have to wear so many hats. I mean, you're literally expected to be everything to your clients, from a designer, a creative, a bookkeeper, a procurement agent. You're supposed to also then be the counselor to them and manage the differing opinions between the different people that are going to live in that space or occupy that space. And that is a lot to hold on just you. And so, how do you get to that next level? That is always the question that I get asked in that first call.
And it's the same exact question for me. How do I get to the next level? And what I've realized is the next level is different for every single interior designer.
Mhm.
My background was I had to get to the next level just based on some personal things that had gone on in my life, where it was, I had to feed my kids. And so I knew that next level for me had to do with money. It had to do with supporting myself. Whereas the next level to some of Beth's clients could be, I just love design.
Mhm.
So it's interesting because there are two types of designers that we have found. And the way I look at it, I'm like, come on, like, we're going to build the systems and the processes. And I truly feel like I want to normalize wealth among interior designers. And it's not just monetary wealth, because my passion now is to create opportunities for charity and spend time with my friends and family. And it's a different mindset.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of in the camp where I'm going to help these designers elevate to get their version of the next level. And I specifically teach how to do this in-house. Okay. And then Beth said, well, they asked me, how do I not get in the position where I'm 65 and I'm still schlepping tile out of the back of my Suburban, which I hear a lot too. And I'm like, we are not going to let that happen. So
Yes.
Tell us about that kind of designer.
I think when I have somebody call me and they say, I don't even know what the next level is going to look like. I know that I don't want to, like I said, be 65 and schlepping tile out of the back of my Suburban. And I want to have a good growth strategy and a good exit plan, but I don't necessarily have this passion to be managing 10 people in-house or even 2 people in-house. So how can I scale my business and have that business give me wealth? Make that something that then I can run and then be able to exit gracefully in a way that has, as Tracy said, met those goals that I have. And there's so many different ways that you can get there. But I think, where Tracy and I are coming at this from different perspectives is where our firm is looking at how do you build the processes and build out the foundation needed to be able to manage your financials with outsourced help. And that doesn't mean that that's always going to be outsourced. So, you might need a bridge. You might say, you know what, I'm going to be doing procurement and I'm going to have somebody help me with this because there's a big project that I have the opportunity to take, but I can't take it on my own. So how can I outsource the procurement and have the processes built? But then when I'm at that tipping point that I'm ready to bring that back in-house, how does that happen seamlessly? How does that? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today, that transitioning back and forth between outsource and in-house. Because I think that that's where you don't have to just have I'm always going to outsource or I'm always going to bring it in-house. Your business and your life might be on a continuum that you have to flow and be flexible in and out. So we want to just kind of start on a couple of the main principles.
And I think a great point to that is designers, it's so hard for them to stay in their zone of genius, right? And their zone of genius is, well, what's interesting is sales, and they don't know how to sell. We weren't taught to sell. That's the one thing, but they're having to sell. But zone of genius is the creative part. And every time we bring up numbers, I see a lot of this, and they're almost embarrassed to say, I don't know my numbers. I don't know my numbers. But we know, and you guys know, that data drives decisions. So it's really important to get that foundation laid first, before going to that next step. So yes, we're going to talk about that. So we've talked about really the two desires, to have it in-house and to outsource. I recommend the Dove Agency to so many of my students for that same reason. And next level could mean so many things to so many different people. So they're a great resource for me. So both approaches work. So we talk about ways to streamline. We'll talk about examples in this too. The back end financials, right? In a design firm to grow into scale. So obviously this is something that people know this, but they are intimidated about this as well. Implementing financial software, accounting software. All right. So, and there are a lot of them out there. The go-to for a long time was QuickBooks. And then as you get a little bit bigger, there's MyDomo, there's Ivy. You only use Design Docs, right?
No, actually,
they switch.
This is some new hot little news
Yes.
for us, for everybody. But for those of you, is anybody here on an integrated software system for their business? Okay, so let me just kind of give you a quick overview of the difference between an integrated software system and a system like a QuickBooks that you work with something like a Ivy or a MyDomo or whatever, okay? When you're doing an integrated system, there's really three main ones out there. There's Studio Designer, Design Docs, and Design Manager. So you probably have heard those in the industry. Those are really your three major integrated software systems. And in those systems, your project management work, what you're doing in the project management is actually flowing over to the accounting software. So your reporting, the kind of data you get is much richer and it's much more complex. Now, with that complex data comes more effort on the front end and more expertise needed for the bookkeeping on the back end. Then some of these, what I like to say, are more of those Apple-esque software programs like an Ivy or a MyDomo or whatever that are meant really for the project management side. So when we work with a client, that's one of the first things we're going to ask them is, what software system have you already implemented? And if you don't have one, let's identify the right one for you. So if you're looking at what is the first thing you can do to scale your business, and we're going to get in a little bit later into the scale versus growth, but what is the very first thing you can do to scale your business? And that's going to be pick the right software that matches your goals, okay? If you desire to eventually have 4, 5 people all collaborating and have very streamlined and detailed reporting that lets you know what is your profitability on this stream of income versus this stream of income, and you want to have various pricing models across your clients, you're going to need to be on an integrated system. And the hot news of the day is that Studio Designer just recently purchased Design Docs. Those were the two. This is very, hot off the press and very exciting. But it means that Studio Designer is putting a lot of effort and money into building out a system that is really going to be the end all be all for interior designers. Now, and I don't get paid a dime for saying that.
Yeah.
I'm telling y'all honestly, I think it's that good of a software system. But I'm telling you, you can't go and use that kind of a software system without making sure that you have a bookkeeper in place that understands that software system. So, I think a lot of times we get glassy-eyed and all excited about the bells and whistles that can be sold to us. But like any other business out there, an interior design business, you've got to make an investment in your business. So the very first investment you're going to make is in your bookkeeper, regardless of what system you make.
Absolutely. And if you're in-house, it's going to be training on that software, because in my firm, all the designers are running that software every single day. And I use Studio Designer. So in my firm, I have a business manager and then a lady, an employee. She purchases, she expedites, and y'all know that's like a job within a job. An office assistant, 2 design teams, 2 leads, and then one's a junior, one's an intermediate, and then myself. And so there are a lot of people touching this software every single day, but they are trained in-house to make it all happen. The way that I run my firm, and we'll talk about this a little bit with systems and processes, is fast moving. I want the answers right now. And we're back and forth in and out of the system all day long. But we can't do it without the support, the training, and learning how this works. And there's obviously controls where you can turn off the access that they see, which, yeah, you want to definitely put some reins on that. But that is the difference of, the main thing is just having something. And I know it's intimidating, but with training or with support, and just like Beth said, even in my firm, having that bridge. And the reason why I high-fived her is because if someday I don't want it in-house, they would now have the ability to support my firm because we used Studio Designer.
So let's talk about that bouncing back and forth between outsource and in-house. So if you're thinking to yourself, I know that I want to be able to sell up to then be able to bring somebody in-house, but you have a bridge there. You might have 6 months to a year where how do you get from point A to point B if you don't have the capital investment to make in your business? So that's where you can say, all right, I can hire somebody that can help me and build out the processes for me. And I'm going to take the time, and you do need to dedicate the time to going and you're learning the system, as well as you have a resource that can help train you on that system. And that resource can be doing the work for you and building out those processes and showing you, okay, let's talk about reconciliations. A lot of people think of doing their books as a run up to taxes. I'm going to get it all the way up to getting my sales tax done, and then I'm done with that. That's not how you run your books. In a design firm, you should actually be reconciling your accounts every week. Every week, you reconcile your accounts, because there is so much money coming in and out of your business that if you do it weekly and you say, you know what, every Friday, I'm going to spend 30 minutes. I'm going to go through, I'm going to make sure that I know and that every single thing that I've purchased on my credit cards or my bank has been categorized. That gives you instant data. So if somebody calls you up and says, hey, I've got, a place at High Point, come with me. And you're sitting there thinking, do I have the money? Do I have the money to go to High Point this year? You want to be able to make, as Tracy said, those decisions fast. And if you're going back to in-house, you're running an in-house firm and you've got that many people working for you, you need to know that that data is there for you immediately. So
Right.
that's why you think about the idea of maybe start outsource, get your processes organized, get your procedures in place. Then as you've built that out and you understand it, then you can bring somebody in-house and you actually know how to manage them.
Right. That's really goes to our next tactic. Is really automating your billing and payment processes are one of the things. It's gold. It's this repetitive, this automation that's really going to, what I call, set you free and get your Sundays back. So the way I've done it on a simplistic side is, are you familiar with Asana? It's just a task delegation tool. ASANA. So it has nothing to do with the financials. But what I've done in my firm to set up these systems and processes, you can list every one of your standard operating procedures in Asana, because you could set it up by client, you could set it up by task. For example, creating a proposal for the Jones family room, right? Every single step of the process is there. So if you do have a design team of a couple of people, they're not going to be asking you what to do. You're going to go into that system and they're going to see, okay, by Wednesday, I have to do this. And they check it off, but it's all there. Down from, if somebody's coming in for a presentation, we have to get the conference room ready, turn on the TV, open the shades, have the set. It's just everything just to make it automated, systemated, because you know why? Then they're not calling me. So if your desire is to follow your passion, maybe related to your field, or just not to be quite as hands-on, and we'll talk about this is scaling. So by setting up that success, and that's exactly what these softwares do as well. I can go in there and set my profit margins. And so, it's a lot of my students, I'm like, what are you marking that up? Or what percentage or what margin? And first of all, I see the big eyes. And they're like, well, I just just wing it. I think I should mark that up this. I mean, there are so many controls that you can set up that you don't have to guess. You can time track. I mean, and again, when it comes down, that probably goes into our next little tactic, but it's unbelievable the time that you save without having to manipulate this manually. If you want to add anything to that,
Well,
but
and I
it's
think-
still I'm passionate.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that when you are using multiple different systems and you're not organized with a process, you're going to find yourself repeating tasks because you're going to have to think to yourself, did I already do that? Do I need to go back and do that again? How do I invoice that to the client? Oh, now I've got to go put it on a PO. Oh, but I need to propose it and I need to get the picture. And there's this just constant rigmarole of like, versus if you can automate that process, then you know every time you do the same thing and it becomes much more routine for you, that's going to save you time and that's how you're going to scale your business. And that will then set you up to decide, what do you want to do next? Do you want to think about building out a firm? Or do you want to decide, I love design so much and I want to be schlepping tile when I'm 65 because I love it and I love the creative side of it, but I don't want to schlep tile without knowing what I'm making doing it, why I'm doing it, what is my profit, how much did I actually make schlepping that tile last year, you know? And this is what these design softwares are going to be able to tell you. And, you know, QuickBooks is not a dedicated design software, but I will tell you, you can run a really good design business on QuickBooks. It is a fantastic piece of software, but you still have to then think, that's just your accounting. You still have to have software, whether it is Asana or an Ivy or a MyDoma or whatever, to run your project management. So
Right. And some of these softwares, what we're talking about, you're creating items within your system. So it's not like you create the proposal, then it converts to a purchase order, and then it's an invoice. You do it one time. But the beauty of some of these, you input the item one time, and then it goes into project management. And so there's a couple of dots. You know, I actually have implemented when the product is acknowledged, I want the team to go in and put a dot. When it's shipped, it's another dot. When it's in their warehouse. So y'all, when installation day comes, I'm telling you, I don't know anything about it really at some points because it's just so, it's just so systemized. And one of the biggest things is our tactic number 3. And this is probably the most important where I feel like we have missed the boat. And so solutions like Beth has and what I have in-house is really the financial reporting and the analysis of your numbers. So I talk a lot about risk and RISK, and the K is knowing about your numbers. Know your numbers. It's unbelievable if you can sit down with your bookkeeper, and sometimes it's almost like a controller versus a bookkeeper, that the controller can analyze what's going on with all the reports, package it up, and I sit down with Maya, because it's a fractional CFO, every single month, and I'm like, y'all, I can sleep because I see what it says. I'm doing great compared to other people in our industry, or when I'm not, hey, Tracy, you need to go get a couple more jobs, right? I know where my profit centers are. Which item am I making the most money on? Tracy, go sell more custom bedding, right? Where am I losing? What's going on with the percentages? Because my profit margin is low on fabric. Go back to design team. How are you coding? It seems overwhelming, but I am receiving this information. So all we talked about before, someone else can do that. As long as you're receiving the information that's double checked, it allows you to make big deal decisions in your company.
And I think on that same note, I don't care if you are brand new in this industry. This is your very first year and you're trying to figure out how to even run a business or get a client. Still put together a budget at the beginning of the year. Give yourself a budget and a forecast. You might blow that forecast out of the water. You might, mess up on your budget and accidentally spend too much or, whatever. But you have a budget. And I think what you need to think about in that budget are things like, what is going to be the amount of money each year that you are going to invest in your company? The number of people that tell me that as a designer that is working out of their home office and they get their clients and they in their mind, I don't have any overhead. That is a really bad way to look at it, at your business. It is a business and you will have overhead. You need to decide, what is that overhead going to be? What is going to be that investment? Is it going to be in a new website, be able to be your portfolio that you want to show off? Is it going to be in that bookkeeper that's going to help you come up with your budget or forecast? So think through that at every December. And again, if you know your numbers and you're doing this every year, you're going to be able to look back and see, what were my numbers? What did I do well? What did I not do well? And what is going to be my budget for the coming year? And then at the same time that you do a budget, put together a forecast. Think through to yourself, I think I can go get 5 big clients and 2 small clients and 1 new construction. What do I think I'm going to make on that? And what am I forecasting that I'm going to want to be able to do with that money? And start thinking through a 5-year plan. We always tell our clients, think through a 5-year plan, because 5 years is soon enough that you can come up with some really good goals,
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes when I would say that, again, it's like these big eyes. So if you break it sometimes down into smaller steps, one of the biggest questions I get, how do I know if it's time to hire another designer? How do I know it's time to hire a bookkeeper? Because they're really afraid to pull the trigger. What if I don't have enough business, right? So when I was growing my company, like really growing it, I remember I was on a business retreat for entrepreneurs. And someone in my forum, I turned to him and he's like, what's going on? I had a phone call. I was stressing. Do I hire this other designer? And he's like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Right? What is the worst thing that happened if you hired? And I was like, I'd have to let them go, right? But in my head, I knew, and this is how I justified it back then. I knew that if I went out and got 2 more Smith jobs by the end of the year, that would cover her salary. And that's how I did it back then. But now that I've got great financial reporting, right, I can make those decisions. This is a great example too with this reporting. So by having your fractional CFO or someone that is advising you, so we tweaked our freight. Okay, we do a lot of furnish, a lot of FF&E. We tweaked our freight cost, right, to the client. So we make enough per year to pay the salary of my expediter and purchaser. It's covered just from the profit of that. So that kind of stuff, again, you won't know until you really dig down. And again, I talk about risk unless you try it, right?
And I think on that same note, when you talk about procurement, that's one of those things that when we were putting together our firm, we made the decision that procurement was going to be one of the services that we were going to offer. So, everything we do for our clients is hourly. They pay us hourly for whatever they need, whatever they're doing. So if you talk about procurement should always be a profit center for you, always. That is a service you are providing for your client. So, when we're putting together processes for our procurement associates working with a client, they are tracking every minute of their time per client project for their clients. And so at the end of every month, they get a report that says, on the Jones project, it was 6 hours of procurement this month, and on this project, and they are able to then go turn around and bill that back to their clients with a markup, just like they would a sofa or anything else. They're marking our service up. And so they're actually making money on us. And, that is one of those things, it's a little tweak, but when they were doing it themselves, so many designers said, oh, I never did charge for that because I just felt like, oh, that was included in the market. No, your purchasing of that item is because of the relationships that you've built and the education that you have and the development that you've done through your career of knowing that that is the best sofa for this client. That is not them paying you for the time for you to go order it, track it, expedite it, make sure it's not damaged, and deal with any damage claims. So how do you then incorporate that process and that reporting? You have to have reports to know that. You're not going to know, are you profitable in that area or not, unless you're making sure that you're doing the reporting on it.
And I look at that actually as a profit center.
It is.
If you think about like what Beth's saying, whatever those hours were, if you break it down to, let's say, whatever you're paying the dev agency as an hourly cost, you're probably billing your client, I don't know how much it is. If it's 200, I don't know how much it is. But if you're billing, let's just easy math. Let's say 100 an hour and you're billing out at 200 an hour. Look at how much you're profiting on that service. And, it's not a headache, right? So it's the same thing. I'm saving on the cost of my employee and probably making money on that. And then, that's what I teach my students. Really, it's a headache that we just don't need. It is one of the things that are first outsourced or someone takes over within your team. And it doesn't mean to, even if you have a part-time salaried employee on your staff, that's great too, right? You can just look at it from so many different angles and consider payroll taxes and time frames and things. But again, both integral, but just different ways of doing it, right? We talked about it being a bridge, and when I look again, I really grew my firm in the last 10 years. I guess, I don't know. I think I've been holding steady for a couple of years, but hiring the experts, I was not afraid to invest in experts here at the end. And sometimes, I just see it in my designers' faces. It's like, and then they'll look for the least expensive option to hire somebody, right? And that'll backfire and they'll have to go again. But what I did, and it took me a while to figure this out, that when I hire experts to help me, it just shortens the time. And a lot of people, there's designers in particular, are impatient. I mean, we all want it now, right? We want product lines. We want to be on the front of House Beautiful. But again, it's stepping back. It's creating the foundation. And what I teach is basically knowing your niche, knowing your purpose and why you're doing this, gaining more precision in your business, right? That systems, processes, growing your team. Then you can go into big profit, gaining more profit, and then the prestige comes at the end, right? That's the next level for a lot of people. But you can't do it unless you understand this part. It's just the main driver.
Well, and I think a lot of people too, they go and they find themselves in a crunch of, I can't keep up with the business. I can't keep up with how much is coming my way. And so the first thing they do is think, I got to go get another designer. I got to go get another designer to help me. Well, then that other designer comes on and what they have is double the purchasing, double the management that's needed, and all of the problems they weren't taken care of as the foundation for their firm, which is why I say sometimes you have to take that step back a little bit. And we see that a lot with clients that come to us, is we have to tell them, okay, we need to slow down just a little bit and take a step back and figure out what are your processes, what are your goals, and then let's start rebuilding back up. And it doesn't mean that you don't go hire that designer, but you might have to be really forthright with that designer and say, you know what, right now what I need somebody that's going to help me with my purchasing. I need somebody that's going to help me with the tracking and the expediting and reconciling these accounts. And that designer might say, oh, that's not what I want to do. I'm not your person. But another designer might say, you know what, I'd love to learn the business that way, and then be able to move into more of a creative design position. But that is the most important thing that you do it from.
And when we talk about really growth and scale, to me, it's people, process, and systems. That's, again, going to be the game changer in your business. And when Beth was talking about goals, again, even for me, it was hard for me to even look 3 years ahead. So to make a financial decision, I just had to go off what was happening here and then take those baby steps. But now there's a lot of us who are interested in even selling our businesses in 5 years. And when you think about perhaps selling it, which can be a thing, y'all, even if your name's on it, you could tweak your name, but you have to start the reporting and the data analysis 5 years before you think about it. And even solopreneurs can do this. So again, another really just another reason why you've got to get down and dirty. And that doesn't mean you doing it, right? That's analysis. So
let's talk about a couple of the reports. I
Yeah.
think that would be a good thing, is to kind of tell you guys a couple of the reports that I would say, if this is kind of your first experience to start digging into your data, a couple of reports I would really look at are, one, every month, look at your profit and loss.
Mm-hmm.
That is basic reporting. Number two, I would take the time to look at, if you can, your time tracking, if you do set fees, to your set fee. Even if you are doing a set fee, you need to be tracking your time, because that is the only way you're going to know is the number of hours you're spending on this project. Are you actually making a profit, or are you just setting a set fee and then you get run over by the client, you know? So that's another report, is I would say, I set a set fee. This is how many hours I said it was going to take me. Where am I in relationship to what I quoted? And how many hours do I have left, and how much work do I have left? Because that will kind of pull you back a little bit. If you go, oh, I'm got 60% of this project left and I'm at 80% of the cost of it, you're going to pull back a little bit. And at that point, you can have the conversation with the client and say, you know what, this is taking a lot longer. We need to kind of step back a little bit and relook at what the agreement was. You don't want to do that when you're already done, when you're already blown past their time billing. So those are two things that I would look at right away. And then I would also look at your profit and loss in relationship to your budget. So if you do that exercise of putting a budget together at the beginning of every year, then you can look at, okay, where do I stand in relationship to my budget? And you can make some really good decisions about also, do you need to change your pricing? Do you need to change your billing method? There's going to be some fantastic panels, I know, through the week on how do you bill, on billing methods. And there's not a one-stop shop approach here. Every single person is going to do something that's unique to their business, but you need to know yours is working and profitable for you. So I would look at those reports as well. Those would be probably the three that I would say, start with those every single month, and then start reconciling your accounts every week, because you'll be shocked when you see how many things in a week come through that you're like, whoa, that was that I didn't realize that shipping fee just hit, or I never charged that back to my client. If you wait 3 months and then you're like, oh, I'm not going to go nickel and dime my client for that $40, that $60. Well, those can really add up. And next thing you know, you're at the end of the year and you're like, I didn't nickel and dime my clients to the tune of about $4,000 or $5,000. Yep. Well, guess what? That's your trip to High Point.
Yeah.
A couple trips to High Point, So think about it that way. Think about what you're giving up by not doing it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. When I saw some chuckling about time billing back there, because I know it's a headache for everybody. So what I've done, and honestly, when we started analyzing this a while ago, we're grossly over the amount, because we're value-based fees. And I've done this for years. I'm like, oh, it's working. We have healthy margin. It's working. And then when we started analyzing, my head spun around. I was like, this is insane, right? So once the design team saw what was going on, it made them conscious to say, because I know I'm getting off the train here, but it is because Jada drops decisions. So when they see that, okay, the client's asking for the 4th reselect, we only allow 2 reselects. Now they know that they have to approach the client and be, big girls and boys, to ask to say, hey, you're falling out of scope. We can absolutely give you a couple more design selections for our hourly fee of blank. It's so routine now that I'm very proud of them. And another thing I've done, I'm bonusing them on coming in. They have to meet our margins. That's another great report. When you look at your overall profit margin, the healthier company as well, and I mentioned this before, your products, okay? Because there's sort of a standard, like in the interior design industry, of about where you need to be. So without, because I'm very passionate about, you don't have to be quite so transparent with your client, okay? And unless you are buying $30,000 rugs or selling 5, $50,000 sofas, cost plus 20 or 30, that's great. If you are not, you've got to mark your stuff up more. And by looking at these reports for these margin analysis, you see, oh my gosh, we're low. What happened, right? and it just keeps you at the steady level. It's truly amazing.
Mhm.
And you see how much money that you are leaking through time billing because you feel a little taken advantage of in a way, but it's you that needs to create the voice, right? To stand up for yourself and your firm and your time that you're taking away from your family. So
And I think too, that's where, when somebody does call us about taking their procurement and outsourcing their procurement to us, they're a little shocked at first when I tell them, you know what, on average, and I'll give you this little tip, on average for our team, we see about an hour and a half per item. Okay. So if you think to yourself, some items are going to take 4 hours, some items are going to take 20 minutes. But when you're putting together in your mind, what is it going to take to actually procure this project from start to finish? I'm going to recommend you take whatever the number of items you think you're going to have in that project. And I'm talking quick ship, accessory, everything. Multiply it times an hour and a half, and then think to yourself, what is the value of your hour? What is the value of your time? Because that is going to be something that at the end of the day, you will be able to then go and track to that. You have a number. I want to try to keep it around an hour and a half on average across all my items. If you see your team is getting upwards of 2 hours, something's wrong. Or if you see, wait a minute, we're only at like 20 minutes on average per item, then somebody's not tracking an expedite. And it's either yourself or it's somebody on your team. And then you wonder why you go to install a project and 3 items didn't make it on the truck and 2 items are damaged and nobody called you about it. And the shipping and receiving warehouse isn't in the loop. Okay, there's a way that you track an expedite, but you want to get paid for it. So there's a little, just kind of an example of thinking through your time billing and having something to measure to. And then you're going to know, you're going to know what it is for your firm, whether it's an hour and a half or 2 hours or an hour.
Who in the audience is like, absolutely, I don't want to ever look at my numbers. I just hate it when I have to think about it. Anybody in the room is like, oh, I hate this part. Thank you for raising your hand, because there's a lot of people who are like, absolutely not. I hate this. I've learned to really enjoy this part. I don't know, because to me, it's like it creates like these opportunities when we talk about these next level things and everybody in the alternative revenue streams. Now I get to say, oh, I kind of have some play money to go fill my passion and do some of these things. I just spent 2 days at the vacation rental design summit. If you guys heard about that, I mean, how cool is that, right? To be able to maybe take a chunk out of the business and invest in an arm of my company that may only do vacation rentals or become an investor, right, on that side. So again, the importance, I know a lot of you guys know that.
It gives you the freedom to say no also.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives
to
you
the
the
wrong
freedom
client.
to say no to a client. If you don't know your numbers and you're freaking out about how you're gonna make your, pay your bills at the end of the year, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll take it because I don't know if another one's coming, versus I know my numbers and I know that this means I only need to go get one more Big Smith project and one more Small Jones project to make my budget. You know what? I don't want this one because I have confidence I can go get one more project versus I don't know where I am.
Or they sounded really loony on the phone and I'm not interested. No, thank you. Red flags.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being
thank
here.
you.
Thank you so much.
Great having you guys.
And cheers to you all and much success to you in this
Yes, absolutely.
lovely industry that we're in.
We're in.